I think my first big break was being born into my family. It was a family of artists. It was a family of people who'd never had a full-time job in like 5 generations. And they weren't rich, they just didn't want to work for anybody. They wanted to write, they wanted to paint, they wanted to create. And growing up, it was emphasized that you can do this. Go off and live in the woods for a while. Find out who you are. It's the spirit of play. It's the perfect way to learn everything. My artistic influences come from my family, but they also come from my mother taking me to the Harvard Cooperative Society. My father died when I was really young, and she took care of me. She worked a couple of jobs, but every Saturday she'd take time off, and we'd go up to the bookstore where there were boxes and boxes of 6x9 and 8x10 fine art reproductions of great paintings. Every Saturday I could pick 10 new paintings. I would read the backs and the descriptions, and I'd learn about those paintings, and then I'd scotch tape them to my bedroom wall. A lot of kids had rock and roll posters on their wall. I had Velázquez and Caravaggio and Da Vinci and Rubens. I've only made a few photographs in my life that I really, truly love and care about. I've only made a few paintings that way as well. I think that if you look back at the careers of really sensational artists, great artists, with the minor exceptions of the true geniuses, you'll find that they're going to have perhaps 5 masterpieces in their life. And if you end up with 5 great friends and 5 great pieces of work, you probably have been pretty successful. I got into alternative process work decades ago. I wanted to make photographs that didn't look like anybody else's photographs. So I went back into the 1800s and started teaching myself how to do it. 30 years later, I'm writing books about it. I followed my path. I followed the thing that gave me the most happiness, and being unique, giving myself the opportunity to make images that had a sense of texture to them, that was about making them by hand, the handmade image. I love that quality. It wasn't about making a journalistic statement. This was more suited to the fine art person in me. This was compatible with being a painter. I could be a painter and I could make alternative processes using platinum palladium or albumin or gum bichromate, big cyanotype murals, Van Dyck calotypes. I could do all that. I was working with art materials. I was working with chemistry. And this relationship between the scientist and the artist is something that I've always loved. Almost every handmade image is an accident, because the time of day changes, the year changes, the freshness of the chemistry changes, the type of paper you're using changes. Everything can make a difference in whether the print comes out. I do these demos in class and workshops, and I say, wait, everybody, this is going to be the most amazing process you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be absolutely extraordinary, and I'll just blow it. I mean, the whole thing would just be a mess. And I say, oh, that was a mess. Let me try again. The next one I do is perfect, and I don't know why. I can put together a group of ideas like, well, this is wrong and this is wrong, but this is right, so I'll keep the right part and I'll change the 2 wrong parts. One accident leads to a success eventually. When I started teaching at Harvard, I decided to take the introduction to photography class and completely change it. Have a short introduction of traditional wet lab and then move everybody immediately into alternative, because I thought this will make you think. This is something that won't be just like taking a picture and processing. Now you have to make your own sensitizer and coat your own papers and print in the sunshine. I mean, how romantic is that? It's a thrill to take some chemistry and mix it together with water, brush it on a piece of paper, and make a beautiful image. I can't imagine what it felt like in the 1800s to do that for the first time. Must have been such a trip. That's one of the reasons I love alternative processes so much. There's that sense of the hand, the sense of the craft. I think that alternative processes is right on the cusp of what's going to happen in photography. I think as digital becomes predominant within the medium, companies that produce traditional materials will disappear. and we're going to stop seeing material. And I think the artists who are in photography are probably going to gravitate to this in masses. I think digital imaging is hosting a kind of a mushy democracy. I don't have anything against it. I think it needs to be tempered to a degree. But this mushy democracy of expression is one in which the equipment finds the faces, exposes for the neutral feeling, and makes the perfect print. There is, to forgive the theater in this next word, a hunger for the accident. And digital imaging doesn't give you that opportunity very often. It's just too good. And it's getting better all the time. I think most people hunger for the imperfect light, the imperfect texture of life. I think there's more humidity in it. There's more depth. It makes you crazy if it doesn't work out. And that's when you unroll that roll of film and you see what you got, and it's just the greatest experience, because you know it's all brand new and it's all opportunity, and you've got a lot of prints coming, and you might only have one negative there that you're going to work with, but it might be the best negative you ever made in your life, and it's yours. I love teaching. There isn't a single thing about teaching that doesn't just thrill me. My students' generation is the most visually sophisticated in history. They arrive from high school with a visual vocabulary that dwarfs that of their parents' generation. It's absolutely staggering how sophisticated they are visually. And so it doesn't take long to stick something into their brain saying, okay, play, act like a bear in the woods, enjoy what you're doing, see what happens, and they take to it. So every day I go to work, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I go into class, I spend the first few minutes just having a dialogue about their day, and we talk about life. And they start having this dialogue with you, which is about creating this personality. Right before your eyes, they become artists. It makes teaching just an absolute total joy. I love making pictures so that I can illustrate the stories I'll tell. Like the man who had just died in front of my eyes in Varanasi. His family is sitting behind me against the wall, knowing that they've done the right thing because if their relative dies within the city limits of Varanasi, they get to skip that reincarnation cycle, to have that incense going straight up in a perfect vertical, and at the moment of his death change direction and race into his body, and then go right back to vertical again, to realize that something just happened in front of you that was beyond your memory, beyond your understanding, beyond anything that you'd ever experienced before. And I can tell you this story, and if I tell it well, if I really get your attention, I can tell you that there's something really important happening when you die. And a photograph is proof. The Gellert bath photograph, it was a Turkish-Roman combination of baths. Now there's a hotel around it, the Gellert Hotel in Budapest, and if you want to go there, you can rent a room, and 5 cents for a yellow bathing hat, and you have to wear it, and you go down and jump into these thermal pools, and there are different levels of heat. And so while I was in Gellert, I managed to get well up into the overhead and look down at this single bather leaning out and thinking, this is just paradise. I love the water. I love what I'm looking at. Look at that light. What a gift. There's that other picture that I have, the child's camera picture of the bride. It's not really a bride. It's just a young girl going through her first communion in Rome. And there's this glowing wedding dress, and you can see her lips and you can see her hand. And then there's this kind of big evil black-suited foot coming down behind her. And I just think, this is beautiful. Here's this innocence, and here's this redemption in white, and there's this evil that she's away from and not consumed by. The chicken is the same way. That chicken in Cairo, in the marketplace. What a beautiful metaphor for an angel. And I followed that chicken all the way through the market, the person taking it to the butcher, the death of the chicken, the payoff of the money for the job well done, and the chicken's gone. 2 seconds earlier, it was an angel, and 2 seconds later, it was a different kind of angel. It was rather extraordinary. Photographs do that. It allows you to see something in progress and to anticipate the importance, to understand that your intention and your ability to predict what's about to happen, your intuitive sense, will give you a good photograph. If you want to tell your story as an artist, then you really have to create your own language. You need your own nomenclature. If you use a language that someone else has already invented, you basically become an illustrator, and you illustrate their language, you illustrate their ideas and their art, and you never find out who you are. My great uncle Henry James, who has a few books to his credit, he has this line, and it said, "We work in the dark, we do what we can, we give what we have, our doubt is our passion, and our passion is our task, and the rest is the madness of art."